Hello friends and welcome back. I'm Nick. This is MSFS Flight Plan, a channel that exists for the sole purpose of breathing new life into that tired old sim routine that you've grown used to. Well, that and saving the world, but that's the easy part for us around here. Today we're back in the UK as a huge welcome to the literally hundreds of new members that we've picked up out here after our recent Leeds flight, which has just been insane. I'm so glad to have you all. I was always wondering if we'd pick up a bunch of Brits, and I'm glad we finally did, so that's just great. And I gotta tell you, I've had more requests for UK flights from you guys in the last month than probably all of our other flight requests combined. I'm not exaggerating about that. And I did fly all of them, but I wasn't really sure where to go first because all of them looked pretty cool, so I decided on Liverpool because we had quite a few people that seemed to be from in and around this area. Plus, it's Liverpool, for crying out loud. Anyone on Earth would want to see this place, so here we are. But I just want to pause for a brief moment to give an important disclaimer about this channel, and I probably should do it a little bit more often, but I know we've got a lot of new folks recently. I am not a historian. I'm not a real-life pilot. I've never been out to Liverpool in real life. I don't even know anybody from this area. So, like most of the flights on this channel, everything I'm about to tell you has been gleaned from only about 2 nights of research, probably 6 total hours of researching all this. So not only is it very likely I'll be wrong about some of the things I'm going to tell you, but I'll probably mispronounce some of the names, and I may even misidentify some of the locations because we've got a lot of them, and some of them are pretty small. But as always, my only goal is to convince you to fly out here and enjoy this area for yourself, not prepare anyone for a history exam. And on top of all that, I'm going to be trying to track my notes, navigate, spot a whole bunch of tiny little things on the ground, all while flying a helicopter for Pete's sake. So just sit back and enjoy this for what it's intended to be, which for the most part is absolutely awesome. And yes, of course, we're flying the R22 again, because why not? All right, I got the fuel down and the governor already on just so I don't have to switch camera angles. So battery on, get that going. We'll give it just a little bit of throttle. And we'll look at the map and then come back and engage the clutch, and then we should be pretty much ready to go. We'll get our alternator on. Okay, so the purpose of looking at the Google map, and again, I'm talking to all of our new folks who haven't taken hundreds of flights with us already, is just to kind of give you a sense of the direction, so you're not like, well, where is he going, and where are we right now? At the end, we'll look at little NavMap's satellite image, our actual flight plan, and I'll show you all the stuff that we looked at. So there's where we took that last flight, leads over to Blackpool, and Liverpool is here just north of the border with Wales. And I'm not going to get too close because I don't want any spoilers. That's probably close enough. So right here is where John Lennon Airport is. We're going to take off from this side, head towards the east, mainly just so I can get this thing stabilized. We're going to shoot for around 1,000 feet. We're going to come back this way, check out George Harrison's house. Of course, we're going to see lots of Beatles stuff out here, and a lot of the other guys lived around here too. In fact, all of them did. So we'll zigzag through here, check out all that, and then we'll hit downtown. They've got some amazing-looking structures down there. Cruise up this way by a couple of nice-looking stadiums. And then come down the River Mersey here to see everything on the eastern bank, which looks amazing. And then we'll turn around this way, check out the western bank. And then we're going to fly north for a little bit because we're going to bypass this first part of the ports, which is the best part. Actually, we're kind of cutting here, so we won't get a good view of that. We're going to come right by that so I can show it to you. Then head to Crosby because there's a very interesting thing about this beach up here. And then come by the only fort, Fort Perch Rock, that we'll see out here. And we don't have any castles. They used to have one, but it got destroyed years and years and years ago. So we won't have any castles, but we'll see the fort right there. And then come over here, check out a couple little structures on top of this hill, Bidston Hill here. Then come around Prenton to look at one more stadium and land at an add-on heliport I've got right here. And there's another one that I'll include in the video description, along with all of our add-ons, that's up here, just in case you want another heliport option. We're not going to go up that way, but I'll include that. The whole trip is about 46 miles, which looks a heck of a lot longer than that on the map. So let me start giving it some throttle here. Well, we've already got the engine RPMs way up. Let me bring that just down a little bit so we don't strip all of our gears. Well, it doesn't want to come down. I must have missed my chance. That'll bring it down. Okay, so we'll start giving it some throttle very, very slowly. So altogether, I've got about 6 add-ons. Again, all of them will be linked in here. The only Payware one is my Orbx Great Britain Central Pack, which does add a lot to a lot of the structures and stadiums. There's a handful that are already in the sim for you, but that really makes it look good. And the rest of them are just kind of touch-ups for areas that already look great. In fact, one of them was specifically made to supplement the Orbx pack, so don't add that one if you don't have the one from Orbx installed, and you'll be able to tell by the description which one that is. Okay, so we're at John Lennon Airport here, which first started launching planes in 1930, and they built it on the massive lawn of a Tudor mansion from the 1500s called Speke Hall, which is why this area is called Speke. In fact, this airport was originally called Speke Airport, and it was officially opened in 1933 and was a major transit point for the Irish Sea crossings by air, and you can probably imagine how much use it got during World War II. A lot, more than we have time to talk about, but I will tell you one very interesting World War II story as we get going and get up in the air. Alright, is everything else good? Let's get that on altitude mode. And I think we're in good shape. Alternator's on. Alright, we're good. So let's just get up in there. And the performance is a very serious problem out here. The city looks amazing, but we're also in a helicopter. I've got everything turned way, way down. It's still going to be pretty tough. We're going to get a good bit of stuttering, but I think it's totally worth it. let's not hit that thing. Really nice looking area. One of the add-ons that's also included is for a bunch of sandbars for the Mersey River and then just north of it, which I thought looked pretty neat, but it was competing with some of the photogrammetry, so I took it back out. So that won't be, it's not added for this flight, but if you want to check it out. Some of the areas do look pretty cool, and there really are tons of sandbars out here, so I'll put that in there too if you want to check it out. And here comes our runway. We're going to try to get up to around 1,000 feet, and I'm going to keep the manifold pressure around 12 to 13 inches once we're done climbing. That should get us a good flight speed, which I'm going to try to keep around 60 knots. Yep, we're already getting some stuttering. I think this is a modded up airport too. I probably should have just taken that out since we're only seeing it for a second. And way up there ahead of us, there's also some great looking bridges in the distance. We didn't fly down there. We're not going to be flying down there, so I did not research those or bookmark them. I'm sure someone from around here can tell us what those are. So the cool story about this place, on October 8th of 1940, one day before John Lennon was born as a matter of fact, this airport was the location of what may be the fastest air-to-air combat kill of all time. An RAF pilot named Dennis Gillum was taking off in his Hawker Hurricane, and as he was doing it, a German Ju-88 crossed in front of him, and he shot it out of the sky before he even got his gears up. So I don't know how many minutes or seconds that was, but that's pretty quick. We'll get a little bit of popping too. Again, all in all, looks great. And this area down here where there's no photogrammetry is pretty rough. Unfortunately, George's house is the only thing that's going to be caught up in that area. Everything else is going to look great. Okay, let's just try to get up to 1,000 feet here. Work our trim a little bit. Get all that stuff pretty much squared away. And then we'll take our turn to the north. And look at that, another huge power plant over there. Man, they got those things everywhere. And cooling towers galore. Alright, we'll just do a slow climb here. As we come around, you'll see a gigantic-looking industrial complex that kind of looks like it does in real life. That is a huge Jaguar and Land Rover plant, just north of where George's house is. And this place we're going to see is where George lived from the age of 7 on. We'll see the place where he was born a little bit later. There's the Jaguar plant, which probably has that footprint, but not flat all over the roof like that. And he originally met Paul while riding the school bus from here. His dad was the school bus driver around the age of 14. And to spot this place, you got to look for, again, this isn't photogrammetry, but you look for this building here, which is probably about right. And then George lived on this side of this little U-shaped multifamily complex right here. So he was right about that spot right there is where his house was. And from what I could tell, I'm not a huge, I like the Beatles, but I'm not a huge Beatles history guru. I think George and John knew each other before he met Paul. In fact, I know they did, because we're going to see the school where they attended together up until they were both 11, George and John anyway. So Paul met up with George, I think through a mutual friend they had, who was the same friend that introduced Paul to John. We'll get to that in a minute. I'm getting confused with all these names. So the Speak Estate is right down in here, which is the place that used to own all this property, the place that was built in the 1500s. And it looks really cool. I saw a YouTube video that was kind of touring that, but it does not look great in the sim because this is the non-photogrammetry area, so we'll just bypass that as we head on over here. Because Paul's house is up next. And I'm going to kind of front-load some of this stuff because we're going to see Paul's house, the place where Paul met John, and then John's house, like one right after the other. So Paul also lived in a humble multifamily complex along Forthland Road. And he moved out here when he was in his early teens. I don't know where Paul lived before this. But unlike John Lennon's house, which we'll see also, none of the other guys' homes have an English heritage plaque yet. The rules stipulate that the central figure has to be dead for at least 20 years, or it's been 100 years since he was born. So the earliest that Paul's house is going to get is 2042. Even if he dies now, it'll be 100 years since he was born, because he was born in 1942. So that's as earliest he's going to get it. Maybe he'll make it that long. He may pull a Keith Richards and live forever. Now look at this down here. I saw this on the satellite map. Look at all those planes. I don't know how they got in there because there doesn't seem to be any kind of connection with the airport. I know they're all flat, but I don't know what that is. One of you guys that live around here, let me know about that. And here's where all the photogrammetry is going to start, so it's going to get better from here. All right, we'll trim down some more and then bring our collective down to try to get that manifold pressure down to about 12. Okay, Paul's house is tough to spot, so I'll show you how to find it. first we're going to look for these fields over here. Here's one of them. And then we're going to see another big collection of them. One of them's got a big green spot in the middle of it. So we're going to head this way. You're going to be looking for these fields over here. And man, I got to tell you guys, this is by far the hardest flight I've ever done. Not for the research, that's always about the same. Not necessarily flying a helicopter. But finding this stuff and tracking where we are and flying it, very hard. I rarely feel stressed out doing these, but I kind of like it. It's like the level boss in your favorite game. I will level up if I can do this. And I think we'll be able to do it. Okay, so let's start heading over this way. So look for this big field here that has the darker green fields in it. Then you'll see another one to the, I guess, east of that. And then you'll see this one right here across the street. And Paul's house is in this strip right here on the edge of that field. And it's right next to this one. And it is a multifamily, but there's one that has a red roof on it. His is just to the right of the red roof one. And that's where he was from. So a decent distance from where George was living. But I guess the school bus went by here. Right about there is where his house is, or was. Up next is St. Peter's Church, which is where John and Paul first met each other on July 6 of 1957. John was there performing with his band called the Quarrymen, and Paul was invited to see them by a mutual friend, and according to Paul, because there were supposed to be a bunch of girls there. So he decided to go check it out. And after the performance, a thoroughly impressed Paul asked if he could play a few licks on John's guitar. He said, sure, give it a go. And after retuning it and then flipping it upside down to play it, John too was thoroughly impressed by the left-handed Paul. And that event has gone down in history as the spark that lit the fire of what would become the Fab Four. This church is also really hard to spot. And in the churchyard, there's a grave of a woman named Eleanor Rigby. None of the guys ever officially confirmed that it was the inspiration for the song, but that would be one heck of a coincidence if it wasn't. Okay, so to spot this place, you're going to look for this big thing right here, and then look in this direction. You'll start to see some church graveyards. And then here's the top of the church right over here. And Eleanor Rigby's grave, once we come around... Oh, no, sorry, that's the church. There's two churches right next to each other. See that tower right there? That's the church. That's St. Peter's. And Eleanor Rigby's grave is right about there. And we're going to fly past it so we can come back around to see John's house. And John moved there in 1946 at the age of 5 after leaving his mom, who was encouraged to give him up. He moved in with his Aunt Mimi and his uncle. And he stayed there until he was 22. And a quarter mile to the north of that is the site of a Salvation Army facility that was a children's home from 1936 to 2005, although the original structure was demolished in 1973. And John used to play on the property when he was a child and was apparently quite fond of it, even writing a song about it. The place was called Strawberry Field. We're going to take a hard turn here, and John's house, we're going to look for this golf course that's going to come into view, fly over the top of these two buildings, and immediately take a right. And then I'll show you where his house was and where Strawberry Field is. There's still a building out now, which is a current Salvation Army place. So there's the top of the golf course. It's going to be right along this road right here. A little bit further. All right, look for that light-colored building right there. And then John's house is this one just to the south of it. That's his place. And then here's where Strawberry Field is. That's a Salvation Army building. There it is. I bet they get a lot of tourists there. All right, we made it. That was the toughest part. Okay, in just a second, we're going to see a very neat-looking building that is the Liverpool Hope University as we're making our way over to George's place. So this is the place where he was born, the one we're going to look at next. I'm just peeking at a little NavMap to make sure we're tracking in the right direction here. But his parents moved out here shortly after their marriage in 1931, and then they moved down to that place by the airport when he was 7. And I'm looking for the university building. That's my next VFR clue. It's going to be over here a little bit more. I think these are their grounds right here. And one of you guys from out here, tell me what all these things are. They look like those co-op gardens that we saw over in Wales. I doubt they're big junkyards. That's kind of what they look like. I don't know. But apparently George and his 3 siblings didn't complain about leaving this place. He said it only had 4 rooms, 2 up and 2 down. One tiny little stove for heating, and the toilet outside was in a back alley, which made it very unpleasant during the cooler months. Look at that down there. Look at this stuff. I'm sure that's not like a rundown neighborhood. I think that's a big garden area. Let me know. Okay, George's place is also hard to spot, so let's see if we can find it. We're going to be looking for a little bit of a roundabout that's got a big clock tower in it. And then we'll know we're getting close. Gotta come this way. There's the clock tower. And George's house is not this front row of houses here. It's going to be set back a little bit. It's in the second row, right behind this building right here, the kind of longer rectangular roof building. He was born right down in there. Right about there. That should be it. If not, really close to it. This next building we're going to see is Dovedale Primary School, where John and George were both students until the age of 11. I'm going to get aimed at it here. It's going to be right here. And the road that it sits right up against is something you've probably heard of before, a bit significant in Beatles lore. It is the Penny Lane. So there's the school right in front of us, right there. And then Penny Lane runs right down here in front of it. Look how great this looks. And there is just so much performance drag, but it's holding together pretty well. I'm trying not to move my head too fast. A lot of people out here. I think there's only about 700,000, maybe 600,000 in the metro area. So this is Penny Lane that runs down through here, I believe. Pretty sure that's it. The grass looks great, the fields look great, stadiums look great, the docks are going to look great. Just a second, we're going to fly over a big... Look, there's some more of those things down there. Look at that, they're all over town here. We're going to fly over a big open area called Sefton Park. And in the 1500s, that was part of a 2,300-acre deer habitat used by royals for glunting, which is short for glamour hunting. Kind of like glamping. This is it right over here to the right. That big semicircular area is part of it. It officially became a public park in 1872 as the city was desperately trying to clean up the growing slums of Liverpool. And it has indeed come a long way. In 2013, it earned a Green Flag Award, which is apparently a big deal if you're a park. I think this thing is a terrarium called the Palm House, and I really couldn't get any details about that, but it also looks pretty good. Look how great the grass looks. You can see the mowing marks in there. Amazing. Just absolutely beautiful. I love the speed. Our altitude looks good. Everything looking great so far. Is this not an incredible looking port town or what? You haven't seen anything yet. This is not the best of it. Absolutely beautiful. Up next is going to be where Richard Starkey, aka Ringo Starr, was born, and also where he grew up, which is right across the street. He lived at the first place until his parents separated when he was 3, after which he and his mom moved to the other one, which is right across the street, basically. So he was born somewhere right over here. And then when he was 3, him and his mom moved over to this place right over here. Look at all these churches they have down here. And a lot of just really neat-looking architecture, too, all throughout the town. Well, boy, the population density is quite intense. Not a lot of yards out here. I don't know which one of these was actually... I have it marked on the map. I'll show you at the end. Or which one he moved into. So here's where he started, and there's where they wound up. And he lived there until he made it big. Until his early 20s. This thing right here is Liverpool Cathedral, which you can see looks amazing. That was completed in 1978 after 74 years of construction. And that thing is 331 feet tall, making it the tallest in Britain and the 5th tallest in the world. And it's also the longest cathedral in the world. And I should add that is an Anglican church. The Catholics, on the other hand, were having none of that. They built their massive Metropolitan Cathedral, which is this one here. This is a woman's hospital, by the way. Thought that was kind of neat looking, so I checked out what that was. But this is the Catholic place. And they finished that one in just 5 years in 1967, a full decade before the Anglicans could get theirs done. So take that. And the original design of that place would have made it the 2nd largest church in the world, and it was going to sport the largest dome ever constructed. But they decided to scale things back a bit after completing the basement. Maybe they had a flashback to old Hank VIII felt about religious overindulgences, but look at that. That's big, for sure. And then right on the other side of it is the University of Liverpool. That's what this is over here, which looks amazing. And this thing here, I think this is it. It's called their boiler complex, which actually got its own POI in the sim. So I guess that's where they make all the hot water and do all the heating. And that looks very industrial, doesn't it? Just absolutely gorgeous. Love this area. Incredible. And I probably would have come out here eventually, so I won't give full credit to the recommendations. Okay, our two big stadiums we've got up here. The first is Anfield, home to the Liverpool Football Club since their very start in 1892. That's this one right here. Its current capacity is just over 61,000, making it the 5th largest in the country. It opened for the first time in 1884 as home to the Everton Football Club, who built their own stadium just up the road, which we'll see next. You can already see it, actually. And neither of these things seem to have even remotely adequate parking, so I imagine fans have to do a bit of hiking on game day. Here's the parking lot for this place, and they just have like a little parking garage over here. But these look really good. And I'm not sure if these are in-sim POIs. You know the sim usually does a good job of that. Or if these are from the add-on pack, or maybe both. But they do look incredible. We'll get a nice close-up view here. Look how jammed in all those houses are. You probably gotta have a lot of money out here to have a lawn. And this next one is Goodison Park. That one opened for the Everton Football Club in 1892 after they departed this first place here. And its current capacity is right around 40,000. And after this season, the team's moving to a new stadium they're building down along the waterfront. And I believe the plan is to demolish this place. So let's soak it in while we can, because it won't be here much longer. They got some great looking cemeteries out here. Not like the ones we saw in Italy, but these are pretty good. Up by Turin, those were the best I've seen so far in the sim. Look at the sides of it. You can see along the building here, they got the little signs and stuff on it. Really cool. Look how close these houses are. If that wall was a little lower, you could go up on your roof and watch the matches. So we're going to come up the river after we go down the river, and I guess we'll go down the river after we go up the river and check out this dock up here, which might be one of the best I've seen in the sim. It looks fantastic. Look at all these houses. I'm trying to think of somewhere in the U.S. that is that densely packed. Of course, they've been around here for a lot longer than most U.S. cities. Okay, the spot where they're going to be building the new stadium is in this open dock area right here. That's now filled in. I don't know if a little NavMap will show it, but on the Google Maps you can see where they're starting to build it. So they filled that in, and that's where they're building the new one. Look at that thing. What is that? Helipad? No way. What is that? A little park of some kind. Okay, now we're coming up on the stuff by downtown. We're going to have a little clump of neat-looking buildings coming up on our left, just south of John Moore's University campus, which is kind of hard to pick out, and west of the Liverpool University, which we saw earlier. So we're going to have the Liverpool World Museum, the City Library, which is the one that has a big dome on it, and the Walker Art Gallery on the eastern side of that. And directly south of all that, which I'll point out to you when we get over there, is St. George's Hall, and that building was completed in 1854, and it appears to be the biggest of all of them. And I read they're using that for courtrooms, and also they got some concerts and stuff going on there. So here's the clump of buildings. So there's the World Museum, the library's right next to it, there's the dome for it, and then there's the art gallery, and then the courthouse / concert area is right here. I think that's probably the oldest of them. I could be wrong about that. And we can just see the top of the Lime Street train station there. That opened in 1836, and it's currently the oldest grand terminus station in the world that's still in use. That's it right over there. And there's the St. George building. And this thing here is called the St. John's Beacon. That's a big radio station tower. They got a bunch of radio station offices up there now. And for a while they had a rotating restaurant, but I guess they shut that down. But you can go up there and take a look at the city for a price if you want to. Okay, so the riverfront buildings, which also look amazing. Shocking. This first one is the Royal Liver building, not Royal Liver. The liver is a type of mythical bird and one of the symbols of the city, and they've got two giant statues of them on top of these two things right here. That building was complete in 1911 as one of the first in the world to use reinforced concrete. And then right next to that, as we go south, is the Cunard building, which was the headquarters of the famous shipping and cruising company from the time it opened in 1917 until the 1960s. And then the last of them there is called the Port of Liverpool building. That one opened in 1907. Look how wonderful those look. And look, you can even see the birds on top of them. Check that out. These things are known as the Three Graces of Liverpool. And this thing here is the Museum of Liverpool, and the coolest thing about that, that's a fairly recent building. I think they opened that in 2011. Right on the other side of it, they have one of the 4 propellers from the wreck of the Lusitania. Right there, that's it right there, see it? Well, it doesn't look like a propeller, but that little dot right there is what it is. Which is cool. And of course, they got their token Ferris wheel. This is a big arena right here, and this is a convention center and their expo hall. Got a little bit of tiling right here. That should be all the tiling we're going to see, and I'll take that for everything else we're getting out here. And thank you once again, Mania Designs, because we have an incredible looking port here. Harbor, marina. With all the boats in it, none of them are sunk, which is just great. So let's swing on out, and then we'll do our quick circle around. And take a look at the other side of the river. Look at that marina. Perfect. Just perfect. Look how awful this looks over here, where the photogrammetry ends. I mean, what a terrible... it really contrasts just how great it is when you have photogrammetry versus how bad it is when it's not. Look at that. Okay, let me concentrate on this turn, because we got to do it kind of tight. Let me get out just a little bit further. And there were all kinds of other POIs. Obviously, we didn't have time to hit on everything, but if you want to look around, if you have that Great Britain Orbx pack, boy, that thing was money well spent. We've used that so many times out here. But then again, I'm kind of wondering how many you could probably see anyway, since it's all photogrammetry. Swing around. There's some more of the non-photogrammetry. Those boats kind of look like they're floating, don't they? I did turn the wind down since it's hard enough to fly this thing without it. Coming up next, we'll see the Camel Laird Shipyard. And everything on this side of the river is the borough of Wirral, by the way. But these guys have been building shit. That huge building right there is part of their area. They've been building massive things out of iron and steel for a very long time. They were founded in 1828, and they made everything from train cars to subways, tubes, and most notably ships. And on their website, they said they've banged out 1,350 of those things. Nearly 200 of them were during World War II alone. I want to show you something really cool out here, and I was going to come down this way, but I'm going to come over here because they have a U-boat museum called the U-Boat Story, where they say they've got one of 4 surviving U-boats down here, and it's broken into 4 pieces, which I guess makes it easier to get into it. I toured a World War II submarine one time, and even that thing was hard to get into. And I'm not sure when this one was sunk or captured, but I want to see if we can see the different parts of it. But they said it's been closed since 2020 for some kind of renovations, so I think it's still closed, unfortunately. The U-boat's going to be right here next to this little dock sticking out. And you can see it very... Look how great those boats look down there. Man, look at the detailing. Well, we're going pretty slow. Let's dip that nose down a little bit. That's all right. We want to see the U-boat anyway. And these are the Birkenhead docks up here. I'll tell you about that in just a second, but we got to try to spot this U-boat. So there is what I think would be the hull of it. See that sticking right there? And then the center part is right there. The sail is that little thing right there, and I think this is the back of it. See that? How cool is that? Nah, it might be a little cool if they left it. And they have a real Enigma machine in there, which alone would be worth the trip. So if I was understanding the description of these docks correctly, I believe they have a set of locks down by the river here, which allows them to drain the entire thing if they want to. One of you locals, correct me about that if I'm wrong. Look at that drawbridge there. But then again, all the docks over there had locks on them. So maybe they were saying that there used to be more docks and they filled them in. I couldn't really tell what they were saying by that. So just let me know. And I think this is the terminal for the Mersey Ferry, which just runs across the river. Looks like they have an old, interesting-looking building right there. I think that's where I saw the landmark for that, which would be a pretty quick ferry ride, wouldn't it? I gotta stop turning my head so fast or we're gonna stutter. Look how amazing all this looks. Look at that building. You can even see the little clock tower on it. Just stunning. Yeah, they called that area the Great Float, whatever they were doing down there. And it was just so confusing. I could not tell what they meant by all that, whatever they were doing with the water. They might just be using the locks to get ships in and out as the tide comes in and out. I don't know. So if you throw in that sandbar pack, you'll see sandbars all around here, which is what it looks like in real life. And it was pretty cool, but there were just some major transition areas that were really kind of sticking out, so I just pulled it out. Some very obvious lines. Wait till you see these docks up here. So as we head along the river to the north for a bit, I'll tell you about the history of Liverpool, and then we'll come back over here and check out a few more landmarks before we land, including Fort Perch Rock right here. Our only fort on this trip. And man, I don't know who made that dock, but it is just so good looking. we can go ahead and pick up the pace a little bit. We'll go up to 15 inches and trim her down a little bit because we got a little hike going up here. The city was founded in 1207, and the name comes from the Old English. It does not come from the liver bird, by the way, which is what I initially thought after I saw that was called the liver building, and that it was the official bird of Liverpool. But it comes from an Old English phrase, Liverpool, which means muddy creek. So Liverpool is what it eventually turned into. And it got its start in the Middle Ages as a farming and fishing community and military outpost for King John, who used it as a staging area for his campaigns into Ireland. We'll trim down a little bit more so we can try to stay under 1,500 feet. By the 1700s, the former port city of Chester to the south had become nearly landlocked as the River Dee silted up. So all the shipping trade started migrating up here. And by the 1800s, it was considered the main port city on the Irish Sea. Look at this area down here. The ships look so cool. I can't wait till they have 2024 where they model every ship in real time in the world. That's going to be incredible. Well, we'll find out if it's incredible. It sounds incredible. Looks good on paper. Look at that. Amazing. Just beautiful. They got a variety of ships down there. None of them appear to be moving, but that's fine. Slowly turning my head. How the heck do they squeeze those things through those tiny little channels to get up in there? And then turn them around. Let's get that pointer out of there. Look how colorful and detailed it all is. Not one thing is flat down there. Just amazing. Even over here. All the containers are up. Beautiful. Just beautiful. In fact, the American cotton trade was so vital to Liverpool that they started building ships for the Confederacy during the American Civil War, along with delivering all kinds of supplies to the South sent by British blockade runners. So not real friendly with the Union, I would imagine, during the 1860s. This is an old radar tower that used to be used for shipping. They're getting ready to pull that thing down. I can't remember what it was called, but I had to check that out. It's all boarded up now. And eventually, Liverpool became such an economic powerhouse that nearly 40% of global trade was passing through its docks. That's big time. But the boom times wouldn't last forever. The loss of huge numbers of young men during World War I and difficulties reintegrating the survivors caused a lot of social strain in the city. And on top of that, a lot of colonial soldiers from other parts of the world chose to immigrate out here after the war, leading to a good bit of racial tension as everyone was competing for the rapidly disappearing jobs. And then World War II came along. So this is Crosby here, and that's Crosby Beach down to our left. Let's trim her up a little bit. Although I do want to come down a little bit, that's fine. We'll just keep going down some. The only English city that got bombed more than Liverpool during World War II was London. Over the course of 80 Luftwaffe raids, half the city's buildings were destroyed, roughly 4,000 people were killed, and around 70,000 became homeless. So this was not a great place to be during the war. The 1950s and 60s was a time of rebuilding for Liverpool, both literally and figuratively, and thank goodness they had the Beatles for some background music. But that was only a modest bright spot as the city's unemployment rate rose to among the highest in all of England. But things have been steadily improving since the turn of the millennium, as Liverpool has been re-emerging as a cultural, tourism, and manufacturing center for the Western UK. And after exploring this area for this trip, I can tell you for sure that it would definitely be on my hit list if I ever make it over here. The only thing that would make it a little bit more interesting would be a couple of castles, but beggars can't be choosers. Look at this golf course. That looks like a photograph. That is unbelievable. That's called the West Lancashire Golf Club. Okay, so here's the reason why we came out here. Take a look at the texture of this beach. This is called Blitz Beach, and there's an old fort out here, which I think was from World War I and maybe used for World War II as well, but it's really hard to see. It's just a couple of bunkers that they had some naval cannons at. Oh, what do you think that is? Oh, one of you guys please tell me that's a shipwreck that's just poking up over there. But all of this stuff from here back down to, well, I'll show you where it is, about 2 miles. This is all rubble from the Blitz. Because the city and the whole country was so broke, they didn't have the means to reprocess that or dispose of any of it. And you can tell when we come around, it definitely does not look like fine, grainy sand on there. You can even see the textures of it. So I saw a show not too long ago of some archaeologists down there just digging through all that rubble, seeing if they could find recognizable signs of any old buildings. Look at that. 2 miles of rubble they just hauled out here and put along the shoreline. And let's see if we can see where those... Okay, so here's where the bunkers were, right here. That's Fort Crosby, what's left of it. And that's about what it looks like on the satellite map, too. That looks like a place that's probably all spray painted now. I don't think that's a museum. Look at this. You can see how textured that is. So it goes all the way down to this thing here. Nothing but bombardment rubble. I need to watch our airspeed. How crazy is that? And a bit sad. The remains of a former city just scattered along the beach. And I wish I could remember the name of that show because that was very interesting. They did find some recognizable pieces of buildings, which was pretty cool. Okay, as we head back towards the south and the other side of the river, we'll take care of our announcements. Again, this flight plan, which I highly recommend you take it if you can. I highly recommend you take it in a helicopter too, because some of those turns are way too tight for an airplane. And if you're not trying to narrate and follow notes, it'll probably be a lot more fun and easier for you too. So that'll be in the video description, along with that bookmark file. If you're not sure what I'm talking about when I say bookmarks, I'll show you at the end. I've bookmarked all these locations, which will bring them right into a little NavMap for you. So if you track that in real time, you'll be able to see them as you're flying along. And then the links to all those add-ons. Which again, if you had that sandbar, this whole area here is just nothing but sandbars if you put that add-on in. Looks really cool till you get about right here. I probably could have left it in because we're not flying down that far. And then you get some really dark lines and some weird stuff over there, but it looked really cool around here. And you can definitely see them in real life. And voting is open, as I mentioned on our last flight, for our quarterly flight plan recommendation competition. I'll leave that open for probably 3 more days after I post this, then we'll close it down. Right now our K2 flight is winning. So we had that one, and then we had the Leeds to Blackpool flight, and what else do we have in there? I don't even remember what the other 2 are. I didn't write them down this time. But check it out. That's in our community tab at the channel if you want to vote for them. The winner, of course, will get a $50 gift card to the sim vendor of their choice. And then anything recommended from this point on. And I wish I could just designate a person for recommending this one, but there were so many people that recommended this area, I really can't single out an individual person. So I'll just say I recommended this one, I guess. But I won't enter the running for that. So if you want to participate in that, if you got a spot that we just got to check out, hop on our Discord server. The link for that will also be in the video description. Go to the Suggest a Flight section. Let me know where I should leave from, where I should land, or even just a general area. If you have a couple airports, that'd be great, but if not, I'll figure it out. And if it checks the boxes, we'll load it up, and you will be entered in the flight plan competition. So we'll close the next one down probably in January. And if we get a whole bunch of them as the channel's growing, I'll just pick my top 4, so you don't have to watch 15 different flights. And then we'll vote on those top 4. And the Discord is just a great place to hang out, as I've said a million times. Okay, so here we go. We got a couple different spots to check out up here. The first is, this whole area is called New Brighton, by the way. This is the New Brighton Lighthouse, that little guy sticking up right there, also known as Perch Rock Lighthouse. And they're not talking about a fish or Chet's co-pilot seat when they say perch. It's what they call a crude tripod with a lantern hanging off of it, which is precisely what was out here starting in 1683. And it was used to warn ships about the big rock right behind it, which you really can't see here, but you can see it on the satellite map if the tide's out. And what we see today was completed in 1830, and stayed lit until 1973 when it was decommissioned, but in 2015 they installed some LEDs and solar panels and got her fired up again. And right behind that is the beautiful Fort Perch Rock, and you know I'm happy to see that. That was built to guard the ports of Liverpool in 1829, and was designed to be manned by roughly 100 men. And it used to be on its own little island, but silt accumulation has made it so you can walk right out to it from the shore. It used to have a drawbridge and everything. And back in the day, they called it the Little Gibraltar of the Mersey. Today, you can tour the facility. They got a museum in there, and I read they even have an escape room type of attraction called Escape the Fort, which is pretty cool. There it is. And as we come over here, you see that green, that copper top on that building there? That's part of a primary school called St. Peter's and Paul's Primary School. And I couldn't get any info about that. I went to their website, which wasn't very informative for our purposes. But they said they really strongly believe in British values, which is fantastic. Look at that. Looks cool, doesn't it? I don't even think that's an Ensign POI either. Really cool. We got some more golf course out here. Boy, they got golf courses everywhere. And somewhere over here, oh, we may be flying right over it. They got a big miniature golf course that I thought for sure would look pretty cool. I think we're flying right over it. We'll check that out at the end. I think I put a bookmark on it. And here's the Birkenhead docks again. Yeah, I know one of you guys know what the story is of that. Let me know if they flooded one of those completely and now just reclaimed all the land and built stuff on it. That might be what they were saying, because all the docks seem to have locks down by the water. Okay, this little, very slightly elevated hill over here is called Bidston Hill. And on the top of it, we're going to find the Bidston Lighthouse and an old observatory right behind it. It's going to be that little white thing right there. We'll take a nice look at that as we come around. Lighthouse was active from 1873 and extinguished in 1913 after being replaced by a series of other lights close to the water. And they got like 3 or 4 other great-looking lighthouses if you go down there. One of them way out here on this island. They all look really good. Those are NSIM POI, or not NSIM, but part of the Orbx pack, if you want to check those out. The observatory was built in 1866, and I thought that was kind of an odd spot for an observatory since it's not that high, and they got a big city right next to it. But according to what I read, one of the main purposes was precise timekeeping for ships at the docks down there. Up until 1969, they would fire a cannon at exactly 1 p.m. every day so everyone could sync up their chronometers that was heading out to sea or arriving. And I think they said the hill's like 300 feet high, not very big. But it's all pretty flat out here, isn't it? So there's Wales over there. We saw all that stuff on our Northern Wales flight. And just a little bit further down, this guy right here is the Bidston windmill. And that one was built around 1800 to replace the original, which was built in 1596. And apparently the old one worked a little bit too well for its own good. During a storm in 1791, the thing started spinning so fast that the friction on the wooden components caused the thing to burst into flames and it burned down. And I checked out a picture of that one today from the ground. They got those sails chained to the side of it, so they're not going to make that mistake again. There's the observatory, and there's the light right there. I don't know what they're doing with that place today. They're using it for art shows or something like that. They're still using it, and you can go check this place out, the windmill, and you can tell it actually looks like a windmill when we go out there, which is awfully cool. I just can't get over how great this looks. Man, we have just been hitting it out of the park with our UK flights. Now that Leeds flight, a good chunk of that was not photogrammetry, and it looked way better than this, so if we were going to take a we wouldn't take a flight out there. It just looks too bad, unfortunately. But everything else we've flown over so far really looks fantastic. See the sails of the windmill? There's one of them, and there's one there and there. Too bad we can't see the chains. Look at all these golf courses out here. Man, they're everywhere. Alright, our last big landmark up here is Prenton Park. That's going to be this guy sticking out up here. That's home to the Tranmere Rovers. I think that's how you say that. Forgive me if it's not. That's a football club, local football club, and those guys have been pounding the pitch out there since 1884. Well, not at that place. They moved into there in 1912, the first iteration of it, but it's enjoyed several renovations over the years, the most recent one being in 1995. Their stated capacity in that place is around 16,500, but they managed to jam almost 10,000 more in for a showdown with the local Stoke City Club in 1972. I'm sure there weren't any fights at that thing. And as far as stadiums go, I think this one looks pretty unique, very unique. It's not round or oval like a lot of the others. They just got those 4 big sides of the thing. It almost kind of looks like a modern-day amphitheater where they put the band in here and everyone could watch from there. I wonder if they do that. No, because there's seats on this side over here. The thing I like about the stadiums, well, for one thing, you can usually count on them being modded up in the sim wherever you go. But they're so unique looking for something that serves the same basic universal purpose. The diversity in the designs of these things is just incredible. And I love seeing them. So once we come around this, we'll take a nice look down at the pitch and the seating area, which I don't recall being spectacularly modeled on the inside. And then we're going to have to try to find this helipad because it is not easy to spot. Luckily, we're going to be able to track right along that border with the bad photogrammetry, which will make it a little bit easier. But let's look at this thing first. I just can't get over the population density out here. Those houses are just jammed in together. But I guess if you're living out here for your whole life, you kind of get used to it. That looks pretty good. Granted, the sun's not shining right into it, but that's not bad. You can see the seating area. Very nice. So as I try to navigate my way in here, I'll give you kind of a heads up on what I'm thinking for our upcoming flights. You know, we're on final approach for 2024 to come out. Again, I'll probably wait about a month. I'm expecting there's going to be some issues when it first comes out. That wouldn't be surprising to anybody. So I don't want to have to uninstall this, install that, reinstall, uninstall, do all that kind of stuff. So we'll just kind of see how that goes. Probably take a few more flights during that time period. We have had a lot, as I mentioned earlier, and throughout this flight of recommendations for the UK, some places in Australia. I'm kind of thinking about Seattle. That's a really cool area. I might try San Diego one more time, because that's an amazing area. Just see if time has healed whatever was wrong in my sim before when I tried to go out there last week. And if you've got any spots that would make for a good... Someone asked me if we do any radio nav flights on the channel, and we have done some, but it's been a while since we've done it. Okay, so I'm going to come down, follow this hedgerow right here, and then come over to the scene with a photogrammetry, and then kind of follow that for a little bit. And that should get us in the general vicinity. If you know of a good place that has ample VOR stations that won't be too complicated, because it's hard enough for me to just fly these flights, never mind having to keep adjusting the radios. I love taking them. But it needs to be an area where we won't have to make too many turns, flies over enough stuff to talk about, and again, has enough VOR stations that it won't be too complicated. But I'd love to do another one. Maybe something we could even take in a 172 or the 150, that'd be great. Okay, so I'm going to have to look over here at little NavMap as we're kind of bouncing around. I'm going to follow these hedges right to that seam there. Pay close attention if you're going to try to land at this place, and this is one of the add-ons. Trim it up. It is really tucked down in these trees. This is going to be a serious landing challenge, so if you're into that kind of thing, as if I'm not sweating enough already from this flight, then make sure you head out here. And there aren't a lot of heliports or helipads out here. This is really only one of two, unless you want to land back at that airport. And you really cannot see this thing. I'm going to have to look at little NavMap to see where we got to turn over. And it said this was like a hyperbaric treatment facility in little NavMap. And then in the Google map, it said it was some kind of hospital. But then it also said when I zoomed in that it was a bunch of individual doctor's offices, so I don't know what's going on. And the helipad looks like it's in pretty bad shape, so it may be totally abandoned now. The whole place looks like it's in bad shape. But it was something at some time. Let's not come to a complete stop. We got about a mile to go, and then we're going to look over to our left, see if we can spot this thing. That's not it down there. That looks like a farm or something, but who would know with all that terrible default stuff? I mean, it is just so tucked down there in those trees. I think I can barely see. I got to keep both hands on the controls right now, but I think I can just barely see the top of it over there, peeking above the trees, just right off to our left, above the corner of our little console glare shield there. Oh, it's right over here. Okay. Well, just keep looking to the right, so you don't burn your eyeballs out on those bad fields. Is this it here? Oh, there it is. That's it right there. No, that's not it. It is hard to spot this thing. Really, there it is right there. Okay. See that little dark spot? All right, let's see if I can do this. And even if I can't, I'm just this is going to be our uploaded flight, guys, so if I don't nail this landing, it is what it is. I can't do this again. It's too much strain. But boy, is it a lot of fun. Trimmer up. Mind the collective. Don't focus on the pad. Look in the distance. Don't botch it, Nick. Kind of a neat little area, though, isn't it? But not easy. Coming on down. Don't descend more than 500 feet a minute. This is a really cool spot. Most of them are just wide open, almost a little bit too easy. Not this one. So hang out for just a minute, because there's definitely some stuff that we'll be able to see with better detail once we look at the satellite map and little nav map. So I'll show you that once we get her down, assuming I get her down. Come on, baby. Man, this is a tight spot. Love it. Can we get to a complete hover? Maybe. Come on down. Nice and easy. Don't overshoot it. Don't undershoot it. Oh, come on. Give me just one good landing. There we go. I think we're going to do it. I think we're going to do what I said every time and then just blow it at the end. Oh, look at that. Are we dead center? Oh. All right. You guys saw it. My second great landing on the channel. We did it. Okay, so what we'll do is just pull the old fuel here and shut this guy off, and let's look at the little nav map. What an amazing flight. Awesome. You Brits are incredible. Everything about England is amazing. The British Isles, sorry. I had to sort myself out with all that. The UK, British Isles, Great Britain. Hard for us Yanks to figure it all out. Okay, let's get rid of that line and take the centering off. So now we can zoom in. So here's John Lennon Airport. We took off this way, and here's those bridges out here. Why don't you guys let me know what's up with that? Because that was obviously done up, and that looked pretty good, what those bridges are out there. And then here's George's house. So that's what the Land Rover plant really looks like. You can tell they just made the roofs totally flat. That would look amazing if that got modeled in PG. That would be really cool. Look at all that texture up there. So again, to spot George's house, look for this thing, which looks about right as far as the footprint goes. You'll see this area here first. If you get to that, you've gone too far. Look for this thing here. Right across the street from that is George's house, and he lived in one of these on the northern side of it there. And that's where he moved when he was 7, meeting up with Paul when he was 14. And here's Speke Hall. So this is the big 1500s mansion. That did not look anything like that. They got some gardens and stuff down there. It did not look anything like that. It was just treed over and there was a big square there. So that was not very cool. Don't bother going down there. And then we came to Paul's house. So again, to find this one, first you'll see these big fields here. It's not this first one. You're going to come around the side of that, but you will spot these things. In particular, the ones with the big greener fields in them. It looks like that in the sim, as a matter of fact. Look to the one to the north. Look south. There's the much smaller field. And right along this southern border is Paul's place. And there's the red roof one. So his childhood home is the one right next to that, just to the east of it. This is a really hard one. And I meant to look up this. There's a big manor house here that looks really, really cool called Woolton. I did not look to see what that was. You can see that in the sim. It's kind of tucked in the trees, but it's really dark. So to find this church, look for the top of this building here. You'll see that. Come past the golf course. We're going to need that to find John's house. But look for that building there. You'll start to see these graveyards. And don't get caught on that first church. That's the one I thought it was initially. It's this one. It's the one with the taller tower. And that one also looks kind of dark. But that's St. Peter's there, where Paul and John met as John was doing his show with a quarryman. And there's where Eleanor Rigby's grave is, somewhere down there. Whether or not that had anything to do with the song, the Beatles are denying it. But I'm highly suspicious. So I didn't take this just like this. I altered it a little bit. If you try to take this turn this tight, you'll wind up overshooting John's house before you get there. So I would come out here a little bit. In fact, when I upload this, I'll fix that. I'll pull this out a little bit. So if you're trying to track it like we were, then you'll be able to come out here a little bit more. But once you get turned around, look for the golf course here. And the way we did it is we came on this side of his house. And then once we got to the golf course, kind of just come along the street right here. You'll spot this triangular shaped building here, the light roofed house, and then one next to that is John Lennon's place. So again, look for the golf course, look for the triangle thing on the corner, come down one houses, 2, that's it, is the next one. And then here's where Strawberry Field is. This is the newer facility, by the way. They tore down the old one in the 1970s, but that's where it is. John used to go over there and play, and apparently liked it quite a bit. And then we came up this way. There's the Liverpool University, or Hope University. You can see all their fields. The building is really neat looking. It's kind of hard to spot. You'll see the fields. If you take a real close look, you'll see that it looks great. It's a great looking building. Beautiful. And then we came over here to George's birth home. So as you're coming around this way, we really kind of swung out wide. And look, there's that thing. Why don't you guys let me know what that is? I'm going nuts. That's got to be like a garden co-op thing. Because when we've seen those in other parts of the world, that's what it looked like. But there's no markers on there. In here or in Google. But you'll see the clock tower right here. You'll see that sticking up. And you'll see the little roundabout there. And then you'll see the top of this building. The longer, it's a little bit lighter colored in the sim. Just go back 2 rows. And that's where George was born. That place right there. He lived there until he was 7. And then we came down here and we saw the Penny Lane School. So I hope I didn't get that wrong. I hope I wasn't pointing to that. Yeah, I may have missed the mark on that. I may have called a different road Penny Lane. I think I did. I think I called this Penny Lane. So look for, you'll see this one first, the next field to the south, and then the Dovetail Primary School, which is where John and George were attending until they were 11. And Penny Lane is this road that runs right here next to that big field. I don't know, maybe I got that right. I'll have to go back and watch it. But that's kind of tough to spot. I mean, everything looks the same out here. And then we came over here. You will not miss this place. This was Sefton Park, and there's the Palm House, whatever that is. That looks just amazing. The grass out there was incredible. And we came along here and saw Ringo's houses. So again, it's really tough to pick these two out, but you'll see this big row of houses here. He lived in one of these, I guess the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th one up. And then when he was 3, he moved over here across the street to this place, which is where he lived until they made it big. And Ringo was the last to join the band. If you don't know the history of all that, it was quite a bit after John, Paul, and George got going. And then we come up here, flew over the top of the Women's Hospital, and you don't need to be any closer than this to get it really great. I know it looks like we're far away, but as you can see, we flew that almost right on the course because we flew over that hospital. You will not miss the Liverpool Cathedral. That thing is gigantic and looked incredible. Longest cathedral in the world. It certainly looks like it. And then we came up here to see the Catholic place, the Metropolitan, that was going to be the largest church in the world before they realized it was going to cost too much. And then Liverpool University right above it. And here's the boiler complex, which actually has a label in Google and is an NSIM POI. So whatever's going on there must be a big deal. And then we come up here to the stadium. So these both looked amazing. There's Anfield. Shankly Gates. Boy, I bet they have a blast at that place. Talk about rowdy. And then, was it a... Oh, it is a cemetery. They just got a war memorial in there. That looked pretty good too. And then we saw Goodison Park. Also looked amazing. This is the one that's about to get torn down. I'll show you where they're building a new one here in just a second. There's where it is. Right. Oh, yeah, look. Okay, so if you zoom in, you can see where they're building it. They just filled that thing in. Check it out. Before, after. Before, after. Boy, that's going to be pretty cool, huh? Right along the water there. And then down here is where we saw the clump of museums. So there's the World Museum, which is kind of like it's kind of a universal museum. They got history and science and all that stuff in there. There's the Central Library, and then there's the Art Gallery. And here's St. George's Hall, which now has courthouses and apparently some concert halls in it. And then here's the Lime Street Station, which almost looks like it's a warped image, but I don't think it is. I think that's what it really looks like. So that's the oldest still functioning grand terminal building in the world. And then there's St. John's Beacon, which I kind of caught at just the last second. And it kind of blends in when you're coming in with the horizon, but if you look for it, you'll definitely see that too. And I put a few bookmarks on this just because they're interesting. The Cavern Club was the place where the Beatles were playing a lot down here. You'd never be able to pick it out, but that's where that is right there. You can see a little marker for it. I think they played over 300 times in that place. And they have one Beatles museum right there, and then they have another one down here. I'll show that to you in just a second. But here's where we saw the Three Graces, the Royal Liver Building, the Cunard Building, and then the Port of Liverpool Building. All those look just beautiful. And this is the one that had the birds on top of it, right on top of those two spires there. You can see them in the sim. Here's the Museum of Liverpool. And when you guys let me know what this Equator House, Latitude, and Longitude building is, that might be part of the museum complex. But there's the Lusitania propeller. You really can't make out what it is. They said they recovered all four of them, I think, but they say that's the one that's in the best shape of all of them, which would definitely be cool to check that out. I think that sank in 1911, maybe a little bit later than that. That's what really brought the U.S. into World War I. And here's the other museum, the Beatles Story Museum. I don't know which of these two is the better of them, but those are the two main ones here in town. There's where the wheel is, the arena, convention center, and expo center all looked fantastic. There's our beautiful looking marina, and then we did our turnaround. And here's the Camel Laird Shipyard. See, look at this Sandbanks here. I bet when the tide goes out, look at these. Some of these things look like they're just sitting in the mud. They probably are. And then here's the U-Boat Museum. Let's check this out. It looked just like this in the sim. So there's I don't know which part's the front or the back of it. Well, there's either the front or back. There's the other side of it. There's the middle of it. And I think this is the sail right here. They said it's in 4 different pieces, but it's closed right now, unfortunately. And here's where the Bergenhead docks are. So I'm still stymied by this. I think they may have had another one that was running over here, because in Google it says Great Float, like right here, which is where they were doing whatever they were doing with getting the water in and out of these things. So when you guys let me know what was up with that. But you can see all the locks they have on these. Check it out. Right there is one of them. And then on the other side, they have locks at all of these. All these have locks on them to get in and out. Well, where's the locks for that one? There they are, right there. Probably helps manage the tidal flows in this thing. And you can just start to see the hints of the sandbars here. And when the tide goes out, it's everywhere. All this is one huge sandbar. So then we came up here to these amazing looking ports. I'm going to go ahead and claim those as the best ports we've seen in the sim. That looked just beautiful. Really, really beautiful. And there was a lot more ships in there in the sim too, which is great. And then we came up here to see the Blitz Beach. How close can we get? And look at that. You can tell it's rubble. Just amazing. Really incredible. And then here's the fort, which looked just like this in the sim. Just a bunch of big pieces of concrete. So then we head south, did our announcements, and we checked out old Perch Rock. Oh, there's the rock right there. You can see it. So that's why they built this lighthouse, to warn people that huge rock was right there. And then there's Fort Perch Rock. Looked great. Looked really good in the sim. And here's the miniature golf thing. You know, I don't know if that was in the sim. That may be fairly new. I don't know how close. It may have been on the other side of the helicopter. Maybe you could see that, but look at that. I bet that looks just like that if it's there. And then here's St. Peter's and Paul's Primary School. Easy to spot that because it's got the really green roof on the top of it. And then we came over to Bidston Hill. So there's the old lighthouse, and then there's the observatory where they used to fire the cannon. And then there's the windmill, which you really can't see from here. Well, yeah, you can. There it is. And then finally we came into Penton Park, which looked amazing. And we came over to this thing. So if you're trying to find this, again, what we did was we came down here. You will not miss this hedgerow. It's very, very obvious. Just come down this thing, and then you'll catch up with the seam for the photogrammetry right here. And then you'll just have to watch little NavMap, or if it'll load up in the GPS, follow this over here, because as you saw, it's very, very difficult to see that thing. Well, they actually have cars here now. In Google, this looks totally abandoned, but maybe it was a weekend or something. I don't think they're still using that helipad, because if I could take this off, which I can't because we're sitting on it, you would see it looks pretty overgrown and run down. Oh, and the other helipad is right up here. So both of these add-ons will be included. If you want to throw that one in there, there will be another option for you up there. And let me just show you real quick where Chester is, because this is the one that used to be the big port town, just to show you how much silt can actually build up in a place. So here's Chester down here. Look at that. This was the main port town before Liverpool took over all the shipping traffic, but look how clogged up that has become now. I mean, it must have been really wide way back in the day. You can tell this is all just filled in. But for a very, very long time, that's where it was all going. And now look where it sits. There's the River D. That's all it is now. And it looks like they probably had to plow that out and dredge it to make it a canal. Look at that. Amazing. So if you want to take that Wales flight, by the way, here's where all the bookmarks were for that one, for the person that asked about that. So we took off from down here, flew up through here, checked out every single one of the castles along the way. That was a really cool flight. And check this out. Look at all these bookmarks. All of those are flights we've taken around Europe. And if you import that bookmark file, that'll put all those in a little nav map for you, and then you'll just have to go and look for these flights, and you can fly it and see everything we were looking at. So that was it, guys. We got a lot of places to check out. I can't wait to do every bit of them. I learned so much about Liverpool. All I really knew was that the Beatles were from here, and I'd taken a trip out here from Manchester at some point. This is not a photogrammetry city. It looks okay, but I knew this looked pretty good, so I'm glad we got the chance to come out here, and I'm glad you guys came along with me. I had an absolute blast as always, and of course, I cannot wait to see y'all again in the skies. Later.